Nick, we've got the International Criminal Court, we've got the International Court of Justice, and we have the European Court of Human Rights. Help us understand each one, please. Where would you like to start?
Sure. Well, each of these courts is a different type of institution. So perhaps I'll start with the International Court of Justice. That is an organ of the United Nations. It's established by the United Nations Charter. And the International Court of Justice hears two different types of cases. It provides advisory opinions to United Nations agencies, United Nations bodies on matters of international law. So, for example, the General Assembly referred to the International Court of Justice at one point a question as to whether or not Kosovo's declaration of independence was in accordance with international law. It also hears disputes between states when it has jurisdiction. So various states have agreed that the International Court of Justice could hear disputes between them, and it's often a provision of international treaties that those that sign the treaty agree that should there be a dispute about the treaty, it then would go to the International Court of Justice. So the International Court of Justice, for example, heard cases involving allegations of genocide by Bosnia against Serbia, and by Serbia against Croatia and Croatia against Serbia. It recently is hearing the case about the interpretation of the Genocide Convention in the case of Gambia versus Myanmar, for example.
But that's because there are treaties amongst those parties saying that such issues will be adjudicated by the International Court of Justice?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
So another example would be Georgia and Russia. Georgia alleged that Russia's actions in Abkhazia violated an international convention against racial discrimination.
So is it fair to say that in this case, the International Court of Justice has no jurisdiction over issues of crimes committed during this war?
I won't give an opinion about this particular, but it only has jurisdiction when there is a treaty involved, when there's an allegation that a treaty is violated.
Okay, and in this case, there are no treaties between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Well,
okay. No, I won't ask I won't ask an attorney for opinions. Got it. Okay. What about the International Criminal Court?
And the International Criminal Court is a different institution. It's not part of the United Nations. It's a treaty-based institution. There's, I believe, now 123 states that have signed that treaty, but many of the bigger states in the world, more powerful states, have not, such as the United States, China, Russia,
and
are
neither
not
have
signatories.
Armenia and Azerbaijan.
And neither are members of the International Criminal Court. So that court only has jurisdiction over crimes that are committed on the territory of a state party, a state that signed the treaty, or committed by the nationals of a state party, with the exception that the statute allows the United Nations Security Council to refer cases to the court, which has happened in the situation in Libya and the situation in Darfur, where the Security Council referred those situations to the International Criminal Court, giving that court jurisdiction.
So unless the Security Council were to refer crimes committed in this war to the International Criminal Court, there is no other way for the ICC to hear these complaints.
That's right. That's
okay.
correct.
So that one was an easy one. Therefore, writing petitions to the ICC or the ICJ are probably not going to have sufficient weight to bring these cases to their attention.
The courts have jurisdiction according to their statutes. So for in the situation where the alleged crimes did not occur in the territory of a state party, it really would require a Security Council referral.
Okay. So now we are left with the European Court of Human Rights. which is really a very different sort of form.
Again, it's really based on a treaty. The European Court of Human Rights is designed to hear allegations of violations of the European Convention on Human Rights. So it's an institution part of the Council of Europe. The Council of Europe includes 47 states. 27 of those are in the EU, but 20 other states are part of it.
Including Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Yes, so it has jurisdiction to hear when there's an allegation of a violation of the Convention of Human Rights, and those cases could be brought either by an individual or by a state.
And in fact, Armenia and Azerbaijan both have brought cases to the European Court of Human Rights, also called the Strasbourg
Court.
And
even in this conflict, there's been a petition brought before the European Court of Human Rights, and that court has given provisional measures. And provisional measures mean that the court can say that while a case is pending, it can order parties to take certain actions or refrain from certain actions. So I believe the order ordered both parties to respect civilians and to preserve the rights to life and other rights of civilians.
That was at the beginning of this conflict, this month.
Correct, yes.
So that brings us to our most important possible last question. Enforcement? Does the court have enforcement capacity?
None of these courts really have enforcement. When you talk about international law and the enforcement of judgments, it again comes back to states. The International Court of Justice could refer a state for failing to obey its orders, could refer that to the Security Council, and the Security Council, of course, is made up of states. So it's up to states to enforce these judgments. Even the International Criminal Court, which only deals with allegations against individuals, individual criminal responsibility, it doesn't have its own police force. It depends upon states enforcing its orders and judgments.
In conclusion, at this moment, none of the three courts can do any more than they have already done. The first two, Armenia and Azerbaijan, are not party to. The last one, yes, they have in fact come up with a decision that should be welcomed by the international community, that is, refrain from hostilities and abuses, and yet they do not have the capacity to enforce, and really no other body does either. Is that a fair summation, sir?
I think it's
more or less.
It's a fair summation to say that courts can't enforce without states, and that the jurisdiction of these all depend upon states. But there are many instances where international lawyers can get creative and find potential avenues to seek legal redress for various actions. So that's a very, very complicated question, and I won't offer any opinion on that, but I would say that the field is open to creative thinking.